Hi, my name is Jennifer Merrill, and I went on a journey to uncover the expectation gaps between employers and our newest generation in the workforce, Gen Z. This podcast highlights some of those interviews. I hope it helps support you in hiring Gen Z, getting that first job out of college, or even gives you a better understanding of what will be expected of you once you graduate. I am here today with Christine Dolliver. She is the Director of People Strategy for Dealers Wholesale, which is a premier distributor of commercial doors, frames, hardware, electronic access control equipment, and specialty products serving residential and commercial markets across 20 states. So thank you for being here today, Christine.
My pleasure, Jennifer. Thank you so much for having me.
We are talking about new grads coming into the workforce and the differences in expectations. I'm going to start off with the very general question, and that is, what are some realistic salary ranges for different roles in your industry?
Being in construction, I think it's important for me to note many of our roles do not require a college degree. For the purpose of this conversation, I kind of want to focus in on one role in particular where we do target new grads, and that is on the doors, frames, and hardware side of our business, a project coordinator position. We will hire for this role without a college degree, but if we do hire with a college degree, it's usually a degree in construction management, and we'll hire it in around 60 to 65,000, and it's also a bonus eligible role.
Excellent. Do you find the graduates that you're interviewing have similar expectations to what the salary, where it's really going to land?
Actually, yes. In this role in particular, it does seem to align. I've other places that I've worked and different roles that I've recruited for that was not the case, but this one seems pretty on target.
That's fantastic news. What are some of the primary elements that students are being held responsible for when they come into your company? Things you expect them to already know that they are responsible for?
If they're coming in with a background in construction management, then we expect they're already fairly tech savvy. We expect they can read blueprints. We expect that they have some understanding of the construction process. But we are in a very specialized industry, doors, frames, and hardware. And so we don't expect them to know doors, frames, and hardware. So at that point, we're hiring more for work ethic and time management. And I do look for things like, did you participate in extracurriculars at school? Did you have a job outside of school? Did you hold any leadership positions? Those kind of things, because I think they really speak to their ability to grow and succeed in a given role, that they know how to balance that level of responsibility already.
That's excellent. I'm hearing a lot of that across the board. It's more than just the bare minimum of going to class and getting good grades, maybe doing one internship, but are you able to demonstrate things that are very applicable in the work environment beyond your technical acumen, the time management, the critical thinking, the problem solving, the being able to take initiative, things that they'll have to be able to tell a story about how they've acquired or exercised those types of skills in ways that come from experience.
That's exactly right.
So the premise of this really is also to hone in on things that we don't have data for. We can find data on salary, we can find data on expectations on salary, but we're not finding a lot of actual data on what is work environment and what do students think about work environment. So from your organization, how important is the work environment to attracting and retaining?
We take our work environment very seriously. Essentially, this is what I was hired to do, was create a work environment that attracted and retained the best talent. And some of that is initiatives that I have done internally that include things like increasing our PTO package, or bettering certain offerings, or introducing certain training programs. But it's also how we brand that to the outside. And are we doing it in an authentic way? Because it's one thing to brand it to the outside, but our insides have to actually match that, which is why I'm so excited to say we were voted onto the best places to work in Indiana list this year. Because what that says is all these things that we've been doing, all these initiatives we've been putting into place, you can't get on that list unless people vote you onto that list. So when I'm branding to the outside, hey, we're a best place to work, I didn't make that decision, or people did.
Congratulations on that. Congratulations on the people working for you, voting for you as a best place to work. That speaks volumes for your culture. So when you're interviewing potential candidates, whether it's a new grad or a non-college degree required role, what type of culture fit are you looking for? How do you evaluate culture fit in that interview process?
I'm listening for our core values, first of all. So our core values are own it, work as one team, find a way, and play to win. And so during the interview process, without saying any of those words, I'm listening for examples of where they've done that, where they've gone above and beyond to help someone in a different department, or where they took ownership for a project or took ownership of a mistake, and making a mental note of, okay, they checked that core value box as we're going. But the other piece is we subscribe to Patrick Lencioni's ideal team player idea, which is in addition to aligning with our core values, they got to be humble, they got to be hungry, and they got to be people smart. So if I'm not hearing humility, and if I'm not hearing hunger, taking initiative, those things are red flags for me too. So if I find someone who aligns with our core values and is humble, hungry, smart, that's a culture fit all day, every day.
I love that. Hungry, humble, smart. That kind of encompasses a lot of other things that people could say about qualified candidates or the best candidates for the fit. Also very interesting to talk about the storytelling aspect of that. Not somebody repeating back the core values maybe they read on a website or in an article, but telling a story as to how they exhibit those core values within their own experiences personally and professionally. That's a very smart way of interviewing and a really solid tip for those students out there that are heading into interviews.
For sure.
Those storytelling skills, be able to tell what you did and why it matters.
And research the company. What are their core values and how can you find examples that demonstrate them?
That's excellent. When we think about these new college graduates or even your new hires, because I think that this applies to anybody who's new into the company, what type of resources or support do you provide?
I was thinking specifically about that project coordinator position again, because this is the one where we hire the most new college grads. Because we're hiring from outside the industry for this role, we've put into place a really robust training program that includes online training through the Door and Hardware Institute. So they're getting the actual technical knowledge they'll need to apply in that role. Internal training with other department managers. They get an overview of logistics at dealers wholesale and get to ride on a truck, and they get to go out to the production floor and see how we build doors. They get to go out with installation and see how we hang a door, because all of these help add context to them and being successful in their role. It is much easier to be successful in a project coordinator role if you understand what can go wrong in the field or what can go wrong in production and how your actions affect people upstream and downstream. So that's as part of our work as one team thing is it's not enough to play in your lane. You'd have to understand the world around you. So in part of that is they are assigned to a senior project manager who becomes their resource and their lifeline in training for that role.
That's wonderful, because that person then becomes a mentor in some ways right there internally within the organization, alongside while the new hire is learning to respect all the different roles within the organization. They get to automatically figure out their impact to all the different roles.
Exactly. And ours is an industry where you will run into a lot of people who've been in it 30, 40 years without the same number of young people coming into the industry. And so this was part of our initiative here, was how can we get young people into this industry before that workforce ages out and we lose all that wonderful wisdom and knowledge about our industry. So we really empower them to take new hires under their wing and turn them into what we call door experts or door nerds, and pass on that knowledge so that the industry stays alive. It's not going anywhere. You're never going to build a building that doesn't have a door on it.
We're still going to have doors no matter what. I really like that. I'd like to hear more about how you're making this big transition, or how you've made this transition, and what is it that you feel you're able to market out there that attract people to your company then? What did that look like?
For this role specifically, we can offer an individual a chance to become a technical expert in something that is very sought out. Like I, as a recruiter in Division 8 doors, frames, and hardware, I am talking to people in Texas and New Jersey and Idaho and all over the country to try to find this level of technical expertise, and employers will pay for it because it is so hard to find and it is so niche. I'm offering them the opportunity to get into a field that can be very lucrative for them and where they can take a lot of pride in being a technical expert. But the other piece that I'm marketing is we do have a great work environment. This is a place where you can come in without the industry experience and learn and grow and actually like the people that you work with, and we'll take care of you and you can show up authentically.
I love also that you touched on learning and growing. I've heard that multiple times. Opportunities to learn, grow as an individual, grow in your knowledge, and even advance your career are things that are probably pretty important. What do you think is the biggest disconnect in your experience between new college graduates, their expectations, and employer expectations?
I think pace of advancement, especially since this is such a technical and niche industry, it takes a long time to master it. I talk to people who've been in the industry 12, 15 years who tell me they still learn something new every single day. And it takes probably 2 to 3 years in a project coordinator position before you're really ready to manage projects of your own in a project manager role. And even then, our very tenured project managers, they're managing $5, $6, $7 million in business. After 2 to 3 years, a successful project coordinator can probably manage 1 to 2 on their own. And that can feel really slow, especially if we're hiring people who do fit that humble and hungry type of, but the patience that you need to have to understand all the nitty-gritty details and be incredibly detail oriented and be ready to manage all of that, it just takes time. And so I think that's our biggest disconnect, is just the pace of advancement. They expect faster promotions, and we really emphasize the need for gaining those experiences and skills before throwing them in and setting them up for failure, because it's something where if you do make a mistake, it could cost the company thousands and thousands of dollars. And by the way, project management is a commission role for us, so it also ends up costing you money.
That's a pretty important part for new grads or people coming into any industry to understand, is not only what does success look like, but what are you responsible and accountable for? And accountability, that could be make it or break it in your job, because your impact down the road to whether it's clients or it's internal folks could be catastrophic, or it could be phenomenal, depending on the way that rolls. So that's very
core value. We own it. You make a mistake, you own it. We step up and we do what it takes to fix it. And we don't point fingers, we just solve the problem.
How do you best tease some of those attributes out in an interview?
Again, I'm listening for them to happen organically. But if I don't get them organically, then I will ask, I don't want to say leading questions, but more behavioral based questions. Tell me about a time that you failed. Or tell me the part of the job that really drains your energy instead of gives you energy. And that's when you'll hear things like, oh, when someone else makes a mistake and I have to clean up their mess. Or you'll hear things like, okay, that's a little bit of a, yeah, it's going to happen in every single job. And you got to be willing to work as one team and fix the problem. I'm just teasing out more behavioral questions as well as experiential questions, like that. Tell me about a time when you did make a mistake or did fail. If they can't name one, then that's probably a red flag.
Sounds again like some really good storytelling skills are something that everybody needs to hone in on, regardless of where you are in life. Being able to explain in a storytelling format what happened, why, what you did about it, the impact of that. That's really critical stuff. So thank you for sharing that. I've got one more question, and it has to do with retention. What do you think will keep a new college grad, young person, at a job?
Honestly, I don't think this is just unique to college grads, but it starts with making sure that they know that they're valued. It's a fundamental human need that we need to be seen, we need to be heard, we need to feel that we're valued. And so when people are treated like a number, you can expect them to job hop, because if you have no loyalty to them, they have no loyalty to you. But in addition to that, I think key for young people is knowing what the opportunity can look like. Show me my future, which in a smaller company like Dealers Wholesale can be challenging. So that's where I try to myself tell stories about so-and-so who started out as an unpaid intern is now our director of corporate development, or so-and-so who used to just weld now runs the welding department. And like in a company our size, there's not going to be a super formal and structured career pathing model where after 3 years you're a supervisor and after 5 years you're a manager. We just aren't big enough to guarantee that those opportunities exist. So that's where, as employer, I have to hone my storytelling skills of when those opportunities do arise, we look internally first. And the people who are showing us the work ethic and aligning with our core values, those are going to be the people we look at first.
In closing, do you have any last tidbits or bits of advice for anybody who would be interviewing with Dealers Wholesale?
Do your homework. We are very protective of our culture, and we are going to hire on fit more than we are going to hire on skill. So I think it's important to understand our culture and understand whether that would be a good place for you.
I love, we're going to hire on fit before we hire on skill. That means there's great opportunity to learn within Dealers Wholesale.
Yeah, and there's no job out there that can't be taught. Doctor, I suppose you should probably go to school for that, but we will hire on fit before we hire on the resume alone.
Thank you so much, Christine, for your time. I really, truly appreciate it.
I'm so grateful you had me. If you think of anything else and you want to reach out, please feel free.